Welcome to Everything Life Coaching. I'm John Kim.
And I'm Noelle Cordeaux. We are the founders of Lumia.
And we're super passionate about all things coaching, and we want to share what we've learned from over a decade of coaching and training thousands of life coaches.
Let's dive into the science and magic of coaching.
On today's episode, we're talking about coaching certifications. This is a question we get all the time. Noelle.
Hello, good morning.
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm excited to talk about this because it's so nuanced and everybody gets scared about certifications, accreditation. Who am I? What does it mean?
Yeah. And, certifications in general, I think, are kind of a new thing. There's been an explosion of certifications across the board in health and wellness, I think, in the last decade, probably.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that points to two things. Number one, the field is really emerging in so many different ways, and wellness is really beginning to be taken seriously as a professional discipline. And then secondarily, it points to the needs that humans have for outside validation.
Yeah, I just love that today, certifications, like you can get something a la carte, you don't have to go to, get your master's or go get your, a degree. Instead, you could get an assortment of certifications and design a career that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And certifications are, a dime a dozen. I could become certified to marry someone today if I wanted to, become a minister online. So, when we're talking about certifications, I want to do so with the caveat that it's just a piece of paper.
So what exactly is a coaching certification, and how does it fit into your practice as a coach?
Yes. So again, certifications are super broad, but in a nutshell, as far as coaching goes, what a coaching certification does is teaches you some sort of theory, intervention, technique, or framework that you actually use in session with a client. And then that client can be an individual, a group, or an organization. So some certifications are really long. They can last over a year, and they're very comprehensive, where you learn lots and lots and lots of theory, technique, interventions, frameworks to build your practice. Some certifications are very brief. They could be a day-long workshop or, a couple hours online, and you pick up a certification in something that you learned that you didn't know before.
Yeah. So I have an L1 CrossFit certification, and that was just a weekend. I went Friday, came back Monday with the cert.
Yes.
Ours is very different.
Ours is very different. Ours is a long certification process, but we wanted to make it a one-stop shop where people could learn enough to really get them going with efficacy and confidence in the field. So, I'm really glad you brought up the CrossFit certification, because lots of fields have certifications: CrossFit, scuba diving, yoga. So, and let's talk a little bit about the fitness world. How do certifications function, and what do you know about it?
Well, I never used it because I never wanted to be a fitness coach, but I wanted to see what it was to get certified. I wanted to be a better athlete, so I thought that would help me. And that's an interesting point. Not everyone who gets a certification wants to use it. Sometimes getting a certification is a ticket into developing skills or doing more in that world, or just exploring.
Yes. And that is the most important point. When you're looking at certification of any kind, it's really all about the value of the learning to you for whatever you're going for.
Yeah. And what a great reminder, because I think today, especially where, there are so many certifications in all different fields, the value is what it means to you, not what society says. I mean, just because Joe down the street got his CrossFit certification and he's coaching doesn't mean that's valuable to me.
Exactly. I know so many folks who go through yoga teacher training, not because they want to become yoga teachers, but because they want to experience that certification process for themselves as a growth point.
Right. Yeah. That's and that's I love that because it doesn't mean it's a waste. At the end of the day, you're bettering yourself and you're learning, tools and stuff that you're going to apply to your life.
And you could return to it at any time if you wanted to pick it up and do something with it. So, let's keep going. So, in different fields that are similar to coaching, like social work and therapy, you can become certified in very specific techniques that overlay your credentials. So if you're a social worker or a therapist, you might choose to go on and become trauma certified.
Yeah. And I get a lot of questions about, if I want to help someone with trauma because I have, healed or I've gone through trauma and I've come out the other side. And so I have a natural passion there, but I don't want to go get a master's. I don't want a PhD. I don't want to go become a therapist. Can I be a trauma coach? And this is something I get all the time. And there's a lot of gray here, but I think you can be a trauma coach by, like you just said, learning about tools and how to guide people, how to create a program, because you're not necessarily treating someone for trauma, but if you're certified in trauma, you can help them on their trauma journey.
Yeah. And that's like, let's talk about that further, because that's a really, really, really super duper important point. So, people experience trauma and still want to go on in their lives and accomplish meaningful goals. If you're becoming a trauma-informed or trauma-certified coach, it means that you're going through specific training so that you're equipped to handle working with somebody who's experienced significant trauma and still has goals and wants to move on with their life. So in other words, the point of the coaching engagement isn't the trauma itself. It's you taking the time to equip yourself with the right tools to be able to work with people on lots of different topics who might want to move forward, even though they've experienced some trauma.
Right. And if you want to help someone with the trauma itself, then it's clinical, correct?
Then it's clinical. That's
right.
when it's ethically responsible to go back into the clinical realm. And guys, it's not about like, oh, I need to shell out all this money for a master's degree. These are people's heads and lives, and it's really important to get the deep levels of education.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad we're saying this because there's a lot of therapists who don't understand that we're not saying that as a coach, as a trauma coach, you are now a therapist. That's not what we're saying.
Not at all.
Right.
As a trauma coach, you've taken on an additional layer of education so that you feel comfortable, confident, and ethical working with folks who have experienced trauma. And then, if we're looking at the world of business, you can pick up something called a project management certification and actually be a certified project manager. Same with the world of tech. You can be a product manager and you get certified at places like, General Assembly or going, in-house to different schools. So these are all independent, outside educational institutions that provide certifications, whether you want to learn how to scuba dive or yoga or become trauma certified or do CrossFit. This is the world of certification.
Do you think that this is going to grow? Do you think that certifications, like getting certified in something and having, your box of crayons is going to be the new way to, is that going to be kind of the new degree? Or is that going to be a different way of being educated and building careers?
It's really interesting. I think that over the next 20 years, we're going to see so much growth and change in the way that education functions.
Oh, yeah. It's happening now.
So let's just really peel this back. So right now in the United States, we have our higher education system. And since you and I were little, the idea was go to college, get your degree, and that will ensure that you have a basic threshold in life from which to function, which will elevate you. And, at college, used to be reserved for certain socioeconomic groups. There were certain socioeconomic groups that just never had access to college. And so it was one way of actually stratifying society and making sure that people with money kept the good jobs. And then the system kind of really got cracked open. Everybody started going to college, and then the student debt crisis came on. So now we're seeing things like siloed industries like business and tech and even coaching come up with standalone educational programs that are very wonderful and comprehensive. But do you know what none of us teach? Cross-cultural disciplines, philosophy, ethics. So, I have a lot of questions about, what happens when individuals are so siloed and they don't have expansive, comprehensive education that is very valuable for developing a lens that lets you, ask questions rather than just become a melling, falling off the cliff one after the next. So, who knows? It's a really, really complex issue, I think, globally, as people are getting really sick of ending up with all of this student loan debt and saying, well, what the heck did it get me?
Yeah, it's, and I have that too. I'm a byproduct of student loan debt and all of that. And I think the combination of that and then accessibility, like how easy it is to now with the internet have access to programs and workshops and, education platforms.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's interesting, but that's also one of the things that I'm really excited about right now. And especially with the world of coaching and especially with how it's developing, it stands to become a fantastic economic equalizer in that you don't need a college degree to become a coach. And you can become a coach and get some really, really fantastic interdisciplinary education through programs like ours and many others that will give you real world skills and credentials to go on and do this work.
Yeah. And let me ask you this. What if one says, well, if I was to pursue a coaching certification, isn't that just all online and I'm not getting the experience of engaging with people in person? What would you say to that?
I think it really depends on the program and the individual and your learning style. So, our program is online, but it's also live and interactive. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And we do the in-person meetups and we do have regional chapters springing up. So, I don't think that it's any kind of education is a one-stop shop. Personally, I keep learning. I've been through 1 million coaching certifications because it's important to keep learning and honing my craft.
And I was going to say there's a huge difference, just to answer my own question, that between watching a video, even like things on YouTube, learning that way, or attending a live class. And even though it's online, with, technology, it's not like we're using dial-up anymore. The live is very live. I mean, it's real. So it actually doesn't feel like a one-way street. It actually feels like you're in a classroom.
Yes, it very much does. It very much does. So now let's break it down, like really tuning in specifically to the world of coaching and talk about what's out there, how certification works, and then how that works in professional life. So there are 3 areas to consider when you're thinking about certification, so on and so forth. So number 1 is certification. That is step 1. Certification is, again, what teaches you technique, theory, and framework and intervention to use in session with a client. There are 2 other components that come after certification, and they're credentialing and accreditation. So accreditation is the umbrella that professional organizations take a look at a program like ours and say, yes, you adhere to the general standards and ethics of the field. You're an accredited program. So that's an extra layer. So when people come through our certification program, they're not only getting the tools and techniques and interventions, but we've also been given this extra stamp of approval from an outside organization that looked at our curriculum. And then if somebody who goes through a certification program wants to go on for professional credentialing through, again, an outside organization that credentials and accredits coaches and programs, then that is a secondary process.
Wow, layers of certification. Yes,
layers. So let's talk about why this exists. So professional organizations exist in order to put forth and protect standards and ethics in a given field. And this is very, very, very different from what happens in session. So for example, if you are a psychologist and you're working under a given credential, through an outside organization, and you can fact check me on this one, John, because I don't quite know. So my understanding is that your licensure board doesn't care if you apply Jungian theory or systems structural theory in session with your clients. They just care that you're adhering to the ethics and standards of the field.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So you learned theory and technique and intervention in graduate school and then went on for credentialing through an outside organization.
Yeah, your theoretical orientation is up to you.
It's up to you. Yep. Yeah. So it's exactly the same with the field of coaching. So let's look at what happened in the field of therapy, because looking to the past is always a good indicator of what we could expect in the future. So the first legislation to standardize the field of therapy was put forth in 1955. It wasn't adopted by all states until 1977, and it wasn't until 1987 when everything was firmed up and those who had been practicing outside the scope of external professional organizations were grandfathered in.
Mm.
So that's kind of happening in the field of coaching now, but even in a more rudimentary way. So there's no legislation has been put forth. We're just in the process where these professional organizations are starting to be formed.
Yeah, there's no official board.
No, there's no official board. So let's talk about what there is. So it's different in North America and Europe. So in North America, there are 3 organizations that are making significant progress towards improving and developing credible, reliable, and valid accreditation models. So accreditation and credentialing go hand in hand. It's the Worldwide Association of Business Coaches, the International Coaching Federation, the ICF, which is who we are under, and the International Association of Coaching. That's North America. So then in Europe, these are called accreditation agencies, and they accredit individual courses and studies, but not individuals. So then there are 2 noteworthy institutes in Europe, the European Coaching Institute and the Mentoring and the Association for Coaching. So there's organizations in North America that function internationally, and then there's different standards in Europe. So in Europe, the term accreditation is typically only applied to school or organization, and then the term certification is used for individuals. Or that's North America, sorry.
So if someone was interested in coaching today, what would you recommend they put weight on as far as all these associations, and what should be important to them when they're looking for a certification platform to get?
Well, I guess the point of all of this is that I wanted folks to understand kind of the history and the nuance, because it's a process. This isn't a one-stop shop. This isn't a stamp that you get and you go on your way. So step 1 is deciding, why do I want to enter the field of coaching, and getting some education to become a good coach, to have that first layer of intervention, technique, theory, framework under your belt so that you can begin working. And then you can look around and decide if you'd like to move forward with credentialing through an accrediting body.
And it seems like what's happening is there's like these accredited bodies are almost like the schools. You know, they're almost and depending on what you gravitate toward, you're going to decide what's important to you or what's not. You know.
Or what's not. And the field is completely in flux right now. This is all new. It's all being developed now. Lots of folks are having lots of conversations about what to do and how it's going to go, and no one really knows. It's also worth noting that the field of health coaching is starting to function as a world unto itself. And I've seen a lot of stuff out there about accrediting bodies in the world of health coaching wanting to require some sort of hard scientific degree or background as an entry point to that field.
Yeah. Here's what I know. No one in the last decade has asked me, where did you get your therapy degree? What were your grades? You know, all of that stuff. Show me your certificate. All of that is a personal journey, and it's something that is valuable to me. And so I think what's really important is when you are looking to get certified as a life coach, ask yourself what kind of experience you want. Ask yourself, you know, when you're jumping into a community, who are these people? What do they stand for? What's the flag they're waving? And can you relate to them? Because that's going to be the direct experience in the classroom and what you get out of the whole coaching experience.
Yes, very much so. And, you know, I can echo you on the coaching path. I've been coaching for 10 years. I got my first coaching certification, of which I have many, 10 years ago. I then went on for credentialing, and I took my time. So I did it over a period of 4 years. I'm a credential holder. And in my 10 years of coaching, I've never had a single client ask me where I was trained and if I hold a credential.
Right. Exactly.
Never.
Right.
Never.
What your clients do is they take in you, they take in your confidence, they take in how you work, how you show up, of course, you know, but they're not going to probably ask for your credentials.
I think I have a really good point here. So my clients do ask me how I work. And when I explain how I work, I really blend strength-based approaches in positive psychology with feminist theory and structural systems work. Like that's how I work as a coach. And so for me, being able to point to the interventions, techniques, theories, and frameworks that I use is really the most important thing. So yes. If I'm answering what's the most important thing, it's the theory and the frameworks.
which you cannot get. Well, I mean, I guess you could Google and kind of try to learn on your own, but you really can't get a thorough education in that until you actually take an intensive or a training program.
It's helpful to be taught because you can ask questions.
Yes. Absolutely. One of the things that I kind of cringe at is I've been seeing a few people on the internet just kind of announcing that they are life coaches without any education. And it makes me cringe because I feel like they're setting themselves up for a poor experience. And it makes me sad because they're passionate about helping people, but they're not willing to actually, learn and practice the craft. And so it's going to be short-lived, you know?
Yeah. And, I think one of the best ways to gain practice out there is by doing. And one of the reasons why the certification process is so important, actually taking the time to learn this stuff, is because the techniques support you as a coach. You don't have to rely on cult of personality. You don't have to have all the answers yourselves. And you're relying on evidence-based techniques. So if push ever came to shove, hey, I'm running people through these theories, techniques, and frameworks that are empirically based. And you can always stand on your work in that way.
Having a large social media following doesn't qualify you as a coach.
No, it doesn't qualify you as a coach.
Yeah, but you know what? In today's world, there are people who, once they get traction on social media, they think because they now have an audience that they can coach. And I just think it's irresponsible. But at the same time, that it's going to play itself out. And then, then they may end up looking to get certified or
Sure. And, we'll see what the
specialize.
field does based on what happened in the therapeutic realm. Honestly, we probably have another 20 years before we start to see any kind of sense made out of legislation. And then all the states have to adopt it. And then everybody who ever's called themselves a coach has to kind of file in line. So I think we have a lot of ways to go.
Yeah, but what's exciting is that right now, because it's so early, if you're listening to this and you are curious about coaching, or if you have, an amazing story, or if you've come out the other side and you want to help other people, it's still early. This is the best time to get on.
It really is. And I felt that way when I started 10 years ago. And I am humbled and amazed by the knowledge that I've amassed just following this field. It's like brain candy.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out all of them,
Yeah.
but see what you gravitate toward, and check out the message of the company. Check out the people involved. Check out the tone, the atmosphere, because to me, that's really like what's important. To me, that's kind of the heart of your experience.
Yeah, and ask questions and see if you can get somebody on the phone to have a conversation, because, when you're thinking about this stuff, coaching is a conversation-based discipline. And that's where it begins, is with the intention and the conversation.
Yes, don't just read the copy on the website. Actually talk to a real person. Thanks for listening to Everything Life Coaching. If you're feeling the draw to become a coach, head to lumiacoaching.com/everything. Explore a new career that brings fulfillment, gives you a true sense of purpose, and a bold community to do it with.
Lumia is ready to equip you with the tools, training, and community you will need to reach your goals. If you're ready to build a unique coaching business on your own terms while making an impact on the world at large, Lumia is the next bold step in your coaching journey. That's lumiacoaching.com/everything.
And hey, if you're waiting for a sign, this is it.